Why Indian immigrants use Canada as a gateway to enter the US illegally. Why has the US-Canada border suddenly become a hotspot for illegal immigration from India? Recent data from US Customs and Border Protection reveals a shocking number. In September 2024 alone, more than 5,000 undocumented Indian immigrants crossed from Canada into the US. This marks the first time in history that illegal immigration from Canada into the US has surpassed that from Mexico. But why has Canada become a preferred transit hub for Indian migrants looking to enter the US? Several key factors play a role: Canada's open immigration policies, its geographic proximity, and loopholes in enforcement systems along certain border regions. In this video, we will delve deeper into the reasons behind this migration wave and the significant impacts it is having on both countries. Border tensions. Washington has issued warnings to Ottawa, expressing concern that the Trudeau government's lenient visa policies could lead to serious security gaps. The US-Canada border, once a symbol of peace spanning nearly 9,000 kilometers, has now become a hotspot for illegal immigration. This vast and sparsely monitored area is now witnessing a surge in undocumented crossings. In 2023, the number of Indians apprehended while crossing the border from Canada into the US increased fivefold from the previous year, reaching nearly 97,000. This marked a significant shift in migration patterns, showing that Canada is becoming a primary gateway for Indian migrants seeking to reach the US. Canada's role in this migration wave cannot be overlooked. In recent years, the Canadian government has loosened visa policies to attract international students, particularly from India. This has led to a significant surge in student migration. From 2020 to 2023, the number of international students in Canada skyrocketed by 61%, with nearly 800,000 students currently studying in the country. The US has called on Canada to reconsider its visa issuance processes, while the UK has also raised concerns as the number of Indian asylum seekers in the UK has spiked during their transit to Canada. In 2022, Indian asylum applications in the UK rose by more than 136%, and this trend continues to escalate. What once seemed like a minor issue of illegal crossings at the US-Canada border has now evolved into a complex crisis, requiring collaboration and policy changes from all three nations, the US, Canada, and the UK. As migration crises escalate, especially during a critical US election year, this border is becoming a focal point of political debate, and stricter security measures may soon follow. Why are immigrants from Canada flooding into the US? In August 2024, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau made waves when he announced significant cuts to the number of low-wage temporary foreign workers, a move aimed at easing pressure on the domestic labour market and addressing Canada's housing crisis.
We need Canadian businesses to invest in training and technology and not increasing their reliance on low-cost foreign labor. It's not fair to Canadians struggling to find a good job, and it's not fair to those temporary foreign workers. We are tightening the rules and restricting eligibility to reduce the number of low-wage temporary foreign workers in Canada.
This policy has had a profound impact on the immigrant community, particularly those from India and South Asia. As a result, thousands of unemployed workers in Canada are now crossing the border into the US in search of new opportunities. Amid economic downturns and rising unemployment, the Canadian government has been forced to make major changes. The reduction in foreign labour is not only intended to protect Canadian workers, but also to tackle population growth and housing pressures. While this move has garnered support from Trudeau's followers, it has also drawn international criticism. Labour and human rights organisations, including the United Nations, have criticised Canada's temporary foreign worker program, calling it a form of modern slavery due to the exploitation and harsh working conditions faced by workers. However, the Canadian government insists that decisive measures are necessary to protect the economy and domestic labor force. In 2023 alone, Canada issued nearly 184,000 temporary work permits, a staggering number. But with unemployment rates at 6.4% and over 1.4 million Canadians currently out of work, Prime Minister Trudeau decided that change was essential. As of September 26th, new regulations have been implemented. Work permits are now being denied in regions where unemployment exceeds 6%, and the percentage of temporary foreign workers a single employer can hire has been drastically reduced from 20% to just 10%. These changes have had a significant impact on the Indian labour community in Canada. India, one of the largest contributors to Canada's temporary workforce, is now facing severe reductions in the approval of work and study permits. Canada has even imposed restrictions on international student visas, reducing opportunities for Indian students hoping to study in Canada. These new policies have prompted a large number of Indian immigrants to seek illegal entry into the US, where they believe better job opportunities await. The tightening of labour regulations in Canada has not only increased pressure on the US-Canada border, but has also raised concerns about the ability of both countries to handle the growing wave of migration. Will these measures solve Canada's issues or exacerbate the immigration crisis? The answer remains unclear as the situation continues to evolve, becoming one of the most pressing challenges facing both governments. While Canada works to reform its immigration system, the US is grappling with the pressure of an influx of new migrants, especially along its northern border. Indian students in Canada face deportation amid new government policies. Hundreds of Indian students have been shocked by significant changes to Canada's immigration policies, putting them at risk of deportation. This is particularly true for graduates hoping to stay and start a new life in Canada. Massive protests have erupted, with thousands of students gathering outside the Parliament buildings in Prince Edward Island, spreading to provinces like Manitoba and British Columbia. Changes in policy, especially the reduction in permanent residency nominations, have sparked widespread concern within the international student community, particularly for the over 70,000 graduates from India. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government has announced a 25% cut in permanent residency nominations and tightened regulations on study permits. This comes as Canada grapples with a housing crisis and labour market pressures, where 97% of last year's population growth came from immigration. With tensions mounting, the Canadian government is facing enormous pressure to reduce the number of temporary residents and revise its immigration strategy. Since 2023, Canada has issued nearly 184,000 temporary work permits, an 88% increase from 2019. However, this issuance is now shrinking under stricter new regulations. Work permits will be denied in areas where unemployment exceeds 6%, except for key industries like agriculture, construction, healthcare, and food processing. While these changes are intended to protect Canadian workers, they also mean that thousands of foreign workers, many of whom are Indian, will lose their job opportunities and potentially be forced to leave Canada. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has defended these cuts, emphasizing that the government needs to invest in Canadian citizens and ensure that domestic workers are prioritized. He announced sweeping changes to the temporary foreign worker policy in the fall of 2024 to better align with Canada's economic needs. Reducing the percentage of temporary foreign workers from 20% to 10% per employer is the first step in this comprehensive reform. Not only Canada, but also Australia is implementing similar restrictions, further limiting opportunities for Indian workers and students. The question now is whether these moves will result in new education and job centres emerging in other countries. This policy shift has sparked heated debates and deeply impacted the immigrant community, particularly those from India. As these policy changes take effect, Indian immigrants may have to consider alternative options, and the US appears to be the most popular destination. However, This is also placing significant pressure on the US-Canada border, as the number of undocumented immigrants entering the US from Canada continues to rise. Thank you for watching. Please leave your comments and share your thoughts on this issue. Don't forget to hit subscribe to stay updated with our latest content.